From Calexico to Nunavut, from the Aleutian Islands to Newfoundland, through Indiana and Virginia Beach, Virginia. This is the Dynasty Pulse. Producer. Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse with bigz and Grindberg. Grindberg and bigz. He is Grindberg, I am bigz. And Schultzy is in the house. Our producer, Schultz, is here. We have a great episode for you tonight. We're going to be drafting a mock draft, Superflex startup. We've got quarterback, running back, wide receiver, flex, superflex, quarterback again. We're waiting on one last person to claim a spot in this mock draft, and then we will get this going. But let me introduce our guest. We have a very special guest today. I don't know if you have read the bottom of the overlay and spoiled it for yourself. You could have just closed your eyes and listened to me, and then I would have told you that we are welcoming Brian at too much underscore Brian. He had too much score, and now he got under the score. Welcome to the show, Brian, our partner from the Fantasy Football Advice Network. How you doing, Brian?
Fellas? I'm pumped to be here. I cannot tell you the amount of hate mail I have sent to @TooMuchBrian. The account's closed. They won't even open it up. I want the name, but they won't give it to me. So we're stuck here, like you said. I'm under the
score. That's awesome. Brian, why don't you tell the folks, our viewers, everybody that's listening in on the Undroppables Network, on the Fantasy Football Plus Network, where you're from, where we can find all your great content.
Well, what's happening, everybody? I am here to deliver anything fantasy football. I'm here for Dynasty, Best Ball, Redraft. I love it all. I'm obsessed, and you know what? My wife's just tired of listening to me. So if you're looking on Twitter, I can be found, like we said, @TooMuch_Brian. I'm all over the Fantasy Football Advice Network, whether it be doing my Too Much Fantasy Football show or Too Much Best Ball show. And you know what? I just love popping in with Grindberg and bigz because there's no better duo that I like hanging out with than these guys.
That's true. You don't like hanging out with anybody better than the two of us, which begs the question why I haven't been on too much movies yet. Let's get that organized and go.
Well, somebody's too busy, you know. The secretary, when you have 3 secretaries, obviously communication's getting thrown around. We've told you just need one, but
I'm sorry, I'm so busy.
Big and flashy.
Yeah, he's big. They call him bigz for a reason, right, folks? And today we are doing a Superflex startup mock draft. Now all the pieces have fallen from the draft. We know where these rookies have landed. We've done countless rookie drafts. Now we need to put the pieces together for this dynasty startup. Brian, you're looking like you wanted the number 1 spot, and I'm interested to see why that is, what type of strategy you're going to use as I'm going to get this draft started. So I'm going to start her up. We're missing one spot, but that's all good. We're going to get her going anyhow, just to get this draft going. We're doing 30-second draft clock. This is a Dynasty Superflex startup. I'm going to share the screen first with our viewers because you know what? I tend to do that too often.
Turn the bell off too.
Even better, bigz.
Who you taking, Brian? Who you signed a contract already, even pre-draft?
Well, you know what? When I first popped in, there were tons of spots to claim. And because we are doing a mock, obviously we're not trading here, so I think that kind of limits it. And right now in Startup Dynasty, I do not like the middle of drafts. Put me on the end. Give me, the 101 to 103 or that 109 to 112. So that's really where I like. And the 101, I just felt like it was such an easy slam dunk. Can you go wrong when it comes to Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen?
You sure can.
No way. I don't know. I feel like Josh Allen is the easy grab. He has been the number 1 or number 2 finish over the last 4 years now. But Patrick Mahomes has that longevity. So depending on what you're aiming for, I think we're happy with either one. And I'm just going to take Patrick Mahomes. I believe in the weapons that are coming in there. I'm hoping that we get back to these 35 plus touchdown seasons. So Patty, come on board.
No, go
Brian,
ahead. Take the QB8. That's
Patrick.
fine.
Patrick was supposed to be my homie. I don't know if you could see by my shirt. He's my homie, but he was supposed to be my homie at the 10 spot. But apparently, he's gone way over ADP at the number 1 position. And Josh Allen goes at number 2. So, pretty standard start here. You could pretty much reverse those two guys in most dynasty startups at this stage. I'm seeing a little of the C.J Stroud hype train coming in and around this area nowadays. And I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Brian, you're shaking your head like that is a super big reach for a guy that is coming off a really prolific rookie season. I know that maybe because they're a division rival and they completely stomped your Colts last year.
Well, only in one of two. We won one of those.
I'm just bugging you. I just like getting under your skin and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on that then? If we're talking about
real quick, I want to interrupt just because we need to give shit to Dev. Come on, Dev, our homeboy FFDF. Dev from the Undroppables. What are you doing? Going to auto pick. Come on. Okay, sorry. Continue.
So with that shit, just following up here. We are explicit here, right? I don't have to.
Yeah.
No beeping.
No beeping. Nah. Yeah, we're good. So Stroud goes at number 7 or 6.
That's where I like him. The 106, the fifth quarterback off the board. That's where I think it makes more sense to me. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. I'm taking them all day over C.J. Stroud. Last year, C.J. Stroud averaged 18 points a game. Do you know who else did that? Jordan Love.
Alvin Kamara.
Well, yes, of course. But Jordan Love, you can get him in the second round, and he's producing the same as C.J. Stroud. He just doesn't have the rushing upside. And if I'm taking a quarterback in the top half of a startup draft, I want that rushing upside.
Yeah.
We did have Dev jump in the chat. Sorry, guys, I'm back. So he's here.
Yeah, we're
good. He didn't get more than 2 touchdowns twice last season. Racked up a ton of yards playing catch up, in a lot of those crazy comeback games. That team lived and died by the 1-score game. They're playing a first place schedule. I'm out on CJ Stroud as the QB, even 5 in fantasy or in dynasty right now. Real life QB, sure. But in fantasy, until we see it, I mean, we've seen the real life magic, but now there's tape.
Friends of the show know I agree.
Like I said, the blow up game was just the 1-5 touchdown game everyone remembers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a CJ Stroud guy. I like what I've seen. Now they've only added more. Another threat to their arsenal. Stephon Diggs coming in there. Joe Mixon bringing another element to that game, which they really haven't seen. Damian Pierce did not go out swinging last year, and they made Devin Singletary look really good. CJ Stroud now made Nico Collins, Tank Dell on the map, and I just think the talent's there. Nobody throws a better ball in the NFL at this stage, in my opinion, than CJ Stroud. He gets these guys in stride, and I'm just saying that straight up right now. CJ Stroud is a guy that I'm going to be playing. He plays in Dynasty. He's got the longevity. He doesn't rely on his legs, and he's been able to be a prolific passer in his rookie season with very little surrounding him. So, the sky's the limit for him. Yes, there's other guys coming in the league.
No! What the hell? That wasn't the next guy off the board. I was so ready to. Oh
well.
I will say I did a startup Superflex draft in January as the playoffs were going through. Our 101 was Bijan Robinson. This was a Superflex, and the guy said he knew it was Superflex. I still don't believe him, but man, there are some running back people that will just take him so early. And okay, all right, Biggs. Making the splash here. Yeah, that's a cannonball in the pool.
It's not a splash. I'm looking at the board. I'm seeing QB, wide receiver, QB, wide receiver, QB, running back. I'm
Scoop
zagging.
value.
I'm
Jamar
grabbing.
Chase just went in the second though.
I'm sorry. I got
Right.
Jamar
I get it.
Chase
I
and
understand.
Anthony Richardson. Like, how do you start a draft like that ever? Come
I was
on,
supposed to have Breece Hall and Bijan Robinson, but now I have Breece Hall and Christian McCaffrey, who, I mean, any one of those three guys is going to finish as the RB1 and the RB2 and the RB3. I mean, that's your top three running backs in the NFL right now. I have them on my team. I'll grab some fucking quarterback value later and get my wide receivers, and you guys can watch me run to the trophy.
Or you can watch me run to the trophy with Anthony Richardson and Jamar Chase. Like, how does that happen? How does that
start?
Like, how do you even? I don't think I've ever seen that go down in how many drafts I've done. So it's crazy.
If anything, you see Jamar Chase maybe go in the first, and then Anthony Richardson slide a little bit. But just to see Jamar Chase come into the second round, I just don't see that too often.
I've been in two startups, and Anthony Richardson has not gone past the 106 for money. So people that are putting their money where their mouth is are putting money on Anthony Richardson. And, he's been proven to, yes, the injury is a risk, just like anybody in that position. But, he's shown what he can do in the games that he's done. And I just think if he could stay healthy and what the Colts have around him and what they brought in, I don't think there's going to be a guy that's going to be, the number one wide receiver for the Colts. I think they're going to be spraying it out a little bit. I think everybody takes a bit of a hit in that offense, but I love Josh Downs. I love what they have in their running back room. And I just think they've surrounded him with a bunch of weapons. And now they've added a deep threat in Adonai Mitchell who can stretch the ball. I don't think he's going to be a target hog, but I think he's going to be playing a really good role for a guy like Anthony Richardson. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there for him.
Yeah, and also don't forget, I had the 12. So I missed out on all of those quarterbacks.
Yes, you did. Yeah,
I didn't have a chance. But here we go with the third round reversal.
Oh, whoa!
Yes.
Oh shit! This is third round reversal. Didn't click there. Oh, I was
so now I
there.
can see. Oh, this is lovely. I'm Dak Prescott, bigz' guy. He loves it. Now here for me, this is just. How could you not ask for anything better? Do you go with okay, so now you get Malik Neighbors to pair up with Jamar Chase and Anthony Richardson. I'm really enjoying this start I have here.
Go Tigers.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to be, I was double tapping.
The most perfect pick in the world. Fall right into my lap.
Sorry about that too much, Brian. A little message to everybody: check your draft settings, check your league rules and stuff before you do your startup. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just trying to remind everybody.
No, it's fair. The amount of random dynasty leagues I joined a league last year and I was pissed by the time I got halfway through the draft and I realized that our bench was only 8 slots deep and only 3 taxis. I've got redraft teams that are deeper than this dynasty league and I was furious because the way I started drafting, I did not realize I wasn't going to be able to recoup a lot of the value later on, and I had to pivot hard. So, it's big, people. I've jumped in dynasty leagues where you start 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, and a bunch of flex. So make sure you understand what you're drafting, and it makes all the difference.
I just joined 4 eliminators last week and then went camping, and they started all the leagues while I was camping and had no internet. So 3 of the leagues I got auto-drafted almost the entire league or the entire draft.
You're going to win one of those.
Right.
right. You know what? I'm going to take a break here and go get myself another sparkly beverage.
Do it, bigz. So Brian here, my question to you then, because if you didn't realize that third round reversal, you probably would have taken a quarterback there and gone with it because you saw the slide and what was going to happen down the line, right? That's probably where you see the value and where you needed to play.
Yeah, AJ Brown was kind of a tier break for me at wide receiver, so that one was a slam dunk, and I was going to give myself that fresh 60-second clock to figure out whether it was Dak or Jordan Love. And now at this point, I'm in a pickle. I wouldn't mind taking a quarterback here, but I also wouldn't mind waiting. And my wide receivers: Jalen Waddle, Dunze, Pittman, Devonta Smith.
And I just don't think sleepers really caught up with the ADPs really either here, because you still see a couple well, it has, but okay, so Pittman, interesting move there. So when I talked about the Indianapolis Colts, and I love the optimism about their lineup, and I see Pittman taking a step back this year because that addition to Adonai Mitchell. I don't see him targeting them as much in the red zone. Pittman is a guy that in the red zone was a looker. They would look for him quite often, and now you're going to see a guy like Adonai Mitchell who's got the height, he's got that reach, and I think they're going to be targeting him there. Those downfield deep threat type player, that's where I think he's not going to garner as much target share. And then when you cope that in with Josh Downs, who Anthony Richardson kind of was a suction cup to when he started at the beginning of last season. He was a guy that was really targeting Josh Downs at a high rate. And I think year 2, Josh Downs with Anthony Richardson coming back, he's going to be a safety blanket for him. So I'm a little bit lower on Michael Pittman in Dynasty because of those facts, and you picked him there as I mean he can prove to be a top wide receiver. So as a Colts guy, I want to know what your thoughts process is behind that pick, and why you're still pretty high on Pittman with all the stuff that I just said.
So with startup drafts, I really like to challenge myself and not get locked in with the youngest, highest upside talent, because at the same time those guys don't always mean competing. So I felt like Pittman was kind of a tier break for me in what I could get from him this year. I also think Pittman's a really good buy right now, just because, maybe not necessarily a buy, but he's a great situation to have because he just signed a contract. So he's got at least one more studly year where we don't have questions. Like going into 2025, there are no questions that he will be the one. He may be competing a little bit more with Adonai Mitchell, but you feel comfortable with that. So I still have time to make pivots or make moves. Outside of that, I did Devonta Smith, George Pickens, DJ Moore, Jalen Waddle. It gets murkier at that point. Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle clearly have a number 1 above them. I did take A.J. Brown, so I didn't really want to double stack Eagles.
Yeah.
And then DJ Moore and George Pickens have, I feel like, bigger question marks than the stability I would get from Michael Pittman this year, because at this point I still feel like I am very much in the competing now while also having some young age to fall back on, because I hate that productive struggle strategy. Now it works in some cases, but I've watched so many great teams just sit there and fumble and trade back and try to have this elite team that so many things
never
change.
panned out. Yeah,
exactly. And I don't want to do that. I want to push more chips in than I don't, or push in more often than I don't.
And like you said there, yeah, I mean, I've bigz has really changed my mindset on how I approach some of these drafts now with the productive struggle method, because in reality, we're trying to win a championship, whether you're playing Dynasty or not. So why not try and win it in year 1? And if you're a good fantasy manager, you're going to make those decisions in the right order. Here, this is a really cool position for me now.
I only say that so I can beat you for once, Mike.
Yeah, well, look at this stacked back. I like these 3 wide receivers. I got 3 young top tier talent guys that would have been number 1 pick talents in any class if they were in their own class alone. Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. And I still see that I can maybe get some value here on the way back. I think bigz has got to look at wide receiver here. I knew he was going to go for his NorCal guy, but he did not go.
Hashtag Novato boys. Born under the fog of the Golden Gate Bridge.
And
both
that worked out good for me.
Jared Goff is actually the second best football player born in Novato. People don't know that. I was the first. Also, Jared Goff and we combined for the highest annual income of 2 people born in Novato.
I'd like to challenge that.
He's
we're going to look into that.
he's got the lion's share.
I almost took Goff in with my 4th round pick. Kind of took the gamble on hoping he'd make it back, but obviously he didn't. But yeah, I love him.
Mm-hmm.
Do you share a hometown or a born town with anybody, Schultzy?
I highly doubt anybody cool.
I never said Jared Goff was cool. Have you seen the guy? I mean, yeah,
he
he
plays in
pulled
the NFL. I mean, that's at least like a decent amount of points on the cool card, farther than anyone from LaPorte, Indiana.
He pulled some high level talent, but I don't know about him being cool. He's kind of goofy, as goofy as Brock Bowers.
I got Brock Bowers in a good spot. I think as my
and that was kind of my thing. Like I was looking at Brock Bowers, and right underneath him, well, not directly underneath him, but a couple spots underneath him was Travis Kelce, and I was like, let me see. Why is Brock Bowers, who is in a murky situation, to be honest, in my Las Vegas Raiders tight end room, how on earth would I possibly take him over Travis Kelce, who just signed an extension? The Chiefs are like, they're all in on him still.
He also just signed his AARP card, but we're just
tight ends age well. So, I'm not worried about his age. He had some injury misses last season, but still in the games that he was playing, especially the end of the season and into the playoffs, I mean, tight end one all over again. So, I mean, if I'm attacking this draft with a strategy of like getting market inefficiency, I mean, Travis Kelce is right there.
I'm trying to
injury early in the season messed him up, and you're right, down the stretch and in the playoffs, you could see it return back to form.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And with the deal, I'm going to pipe in here because I'm a huge, Kansas City Chiefs fan, and
what?
It comes as a surprise to many of us, actually. But the 2-year deal there solidifies him for at least one more year, potentially 2 there, and he becomes the main target there. Again, there's no reason why they wouldn't, and especially earlier in the season, after they have a really tough start to their season. They got the Ravens and they got the Bengals back to back to start the year, and it doesn't get any better. Their bye is early in the season. I just think they're going to use Travis Kelce early to gain that momentum and then kind of ride him throughout that wave in the middle of the season where their schedule kind of eases up a bit, where they can use an Xavier Worthy to be a little bit more accustomed. Hopefully Rashee Rice is back by then. And I just think that Travis Kelce is going to have a very, very good season, back to his elite tight end one numbers. And Mahomes is going to have a really good bounce back season. So I definitely like your number one overall pick there, Too Much Brian, with Mahomes, because he's a guy that had his worst showing last year with his worst offensive team around him that he'll ever have ever again, because 100%. Of where they stand and where they've drafted and where I see them headed. So Mahomes is a guy that I still is now going to be probably back in the top 5 conversation pretty regularly now with what's going to happen around him.
So I got to say, this was a gnarly 5th round. We went from the third round reversal, which kicked me in the crotch. We had 4 quarterbacks go in round 3 and 4 combined. And then we watched 5 go in round 5 right before I get my double pick, because there's a huge tier break at the quarterback position at this point. So I had to go doubled up on wide receiver again. I've got my tight end locked up. I've at least got 1 quarterback. I'm clearly going to be trading for running back, but this was ugly, guys. You set me up for failure. I thought this draft was going to be nice, smooth, very, wide receiver, running back heavy, because I feel like there's a huge divide in Dynasty right now. The polarizing takes of quarterbacks, you have to take them because they're so insulated in value, and then you've got the other stance where no, wide receivers and running backs hold so much more, especially wide receivers. So why wouldn't you grab those opposed to the quarterbacks who are just...
Well, the quarterbacks are where I pipe in here is you need to have 3 quarterbacks that are startable, regardless of where you are, because it is almost next to impossible to trade for a quarterback in Dynasty because they're such a valued asset. It's a lot easier to replace a running back and a lot easier to replace a wide receiver, but people aren't in the market to trade quarterbacks as much because they value them higher. And oftentimes a quarterback is needed to go back in exchange and to make these deals happen. So it's a lot tougher to do it. And I don't see them going down often unless elite assets are involved. and then you're looking at positioning yourself. So when I draft in Dynasty, I'm always of the opinion in my world to always have quarterbacks, because I could pivot around every other position relatively well.
I
The
guess
other
my
thing-
challenge to that is last year. Gardner Minshew, Joe Flacco, and Jake Browning. I got those guys off of waivers in a lot of my dynasty leagues.
Of course.
Or traded for them for cheap. So I definitely think there's
Jake
an
Browning
argument for most. I mean, just it's ugly out there.
Right.
With injuries.
But I think we're conflating a couple of different ideas. We're in a startup draft, and when you talk about rookie quarterback in Superflex, those values carry over year. So even if you're getting a guy like Bo Nix or Jordan Travis or Michael Penix, they're going to hold their second round rookie draft value in over the 4 rookie picks when you're trading over the next couple of years.
Yeah,
when you're
like
talking
Josh
about
Rosen, he went in top
Right.
10. He held his value.
When you're talking about a startup, depending on where your draft position is, that's when you start talking about quarterback value. And again, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm going to talk about my position right here at the 12 and the 2-1, right? And I saw that all of the quarterbacks that I would draft, that I would peg as first rounders, were basically gone. Everybody else I can get later in the draft at value, and they're going to put up top 20, top 15, top 12 numbers. And I got Dak Prescott and Jared Goff. If I'm not mistaken, both of those guys were in the top 10 last year. I got them in the 3rd and 4th round. When you're talking about running backs, you have Christian McCaffrey, who's in a tier by himself, and I got him as the 3rd running back off the board. Bijan and Brees share the next tier, and I got one of those 2 guys. So if I'm talking about production, I just got 2 top 10 quarterbacks and 2 of the top 3 running backs to finish out the year, and a possible tight end 1. If he gets to his 90 targets and 10 touchdowns or whatever, he's going to be right there. And I'm looking at I'm in a spot right now where I'm still seeing in the 7th round wide receiver 1s on their team on the board, like this guy and this guy. This guy. Now I could have gone McConkey there. I could have gone Mike Evans there. I had a lot of options, and I actually like Ladd McConkey a ton, and I like Mike Evans a lot, but he's a little bit older. Devontae Adams still has a couple years left in him as a wide receiver 1. Jayden Reed is the number 1 target in Green Bay. Those guys are still going to be producing in fantasy, and there's still plenty of options for me at wide receiver, even though I didn't take one for the first 7 rounds. In redraft, I'm waiting on quarterback till the 9th or 10th. This strategy paid off in the fishbowl last season. It's going to be paying off when I'm looking at startups this year.
Devontae Adams is 31 years old, though. Like, I get he's
been still demanding 130 targets.
But Julio Jones was doing that too, and then the next season he fell off the freaking cliff. And like, I just don't think that we should. Like, that's the crappy thing about the second round is the wide receivers that are like those fringe wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, like Devontae Adams. I think he's there, but it scares the crap out of me to take him anywhere. And
I'm not comfortable with it. I'm just saying that's how the board played for me.
I'm not comfortable taking Derrick Henry as my running back 1, but I'm also looking at the upside of him potentially scoring 17 touchdowns rushing this year in the most prolific offense he's ever been a part of. And I can't see anything in Dynasty, especially with running backs. They're so interchangeable, where a guy like, it's so hard to keep a guy in a position for that long. And a Derrick Henry can be a difference maker. And if I can get him in the 6th round as my running back 1, and then fill him in with guys that are going to be spot starters, guys that could be an injury away from a number 1 role, I'm all for that. When I look at some of the wide receivers that are there on my board and the youth there. I'm competing year one, but I'm also set up for longevity there too with a couple young quarterbacks that could be ascending here.
And I see your strategy and I agree with it. Although I think that it's better if you flip those positions. I think it's more sound with wide receivers because there are more available that are going to have big years than with running backs. I understand what you're saying. And in the back end, your zero RB strategy does pay off.
These are elite. These are top tier elite. I'm talking about Jamar Chase and Malik Neighbors and Rome Odunze, who could all be top 5 wide receivers in a year from now.
No, I'm not debating that.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the later round value. I'd much rather be looking for later round value wide receivers than later round value running backs.
I'm of the opposite thinking because I think that a running back is an injury away from being replaced with a guy that is just going to run in there with a better opportunity, because then the backup's not going to be as good. So I'd much rather have my lineup filled in with a bunch of guys that are spot starting and running back, and then guys that I can rely on for 5 to 10 years as staple positionary guys for me in the wide receiver positions, like a Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze, like I went. So that's just my reasoning behind. I just think longevity is there. Yes, those guys could win you, weeks and championships in a single year, like a McCaffrey, but I still think Jamar Chase is in that range of league winning potential as well.
And all it takes is one person to lose with Jamar Chase to want to flip him for a running back that he needs because of positional scarcity.
Okay, so we are at the last 8th round here, and now we're looking at kind of filling our lineups here with the positions we're not really full at. So Biggs is probably going to be looking at filling his. Well, no, he's pretty set up. We're all kind of pretty set up now as far as I think Brian's going to be looking at a quarterback on his turn here.
I'm taking wide receivers, so you better grab them now.
All right, then.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'll probably take a quarterback just because we're ending here in the 9th round, but I don't know. Looking at the board, I might wait. I don't know.
So Schultzy, I want to talk to you about your pick with Hockenson here. And, that is a slide, I would say, a 7th round, a guy that's coming off an injury. So, yes, this year might be cut short. He's not connected to that top tier quarterback this year, but in the future, J.J. McCarthy could be a guy that turns into that prolific passer. Like, he could be. So what are you thinking there? Like, why? Because you're looking at a tight end and you see the value there. Hockenson sliding. What do you see his outlook there with some competition in Addison and Jefferson always going to be around?
I kind of took that one as the Hockenson tight end 8 value pick, really.
Yeah,
like you said, some of this year might be lost, but I'm confident in finding a couple guys that, can plug and play to at least, get you through to get Hockenson back. You're going to get a young quarterback who, you tend to see they like the safety valve of a tight end, especially like a veteran tight end. And that is, he's 26 years old still. And we were just talking earlier about how tight ends age well. So, yeah, I get you're going to lose some of this year with him, but with the talent that he is, and he's still only 26, in a potentially rising offense, a potentially, very rising offense. Tight end 8 in the, what did you say, 7th round? I just did that. Yeah. I love the value.
And you're going to want to do the shout out friend of the show, Andrew Cooper, his yin and yang tight end strategy. You've got Hockenson, who's going to be an anchor tight end. And then you've got guys on the board like David Njoku, and the 2 criteria are 90-plus targets or 10 touchdowns. And last year, Njoku had 123 targets, and we still have Jake Ferguson on the board. He was 102 targets. Evan Ingram is on the board. So you're in really, really good shape. 143 targets for Ingram, 98 the year before, 109 4 years ago. Like that pairing a Yang tight end, somebody that's going to get 90 targets or 10 touchdowns, you're still in good shape waiting on Hockenson to come back for the end of the year. So it's a good pick. And again, shout out Andrew Cooper.
Totally. This is a pretty fun draft, actually, to see how things shaked up. I'm actually really excited to kind of just do a recap here after Brian takes his last pick. And
don't rush me. I've got 44 seconds.
Yeah, I'm not rushing you. And
I'm just kidding.
Pause it. Pause the draft. Pause the draft. Give him even longer.
Yeah. Hold on here. We are going in full pause mode for Brian.
Oh yeah, call me out now. Even worse. Thanks. Yeah, folks,
I'm going to put it in the chat.
60 seconds. So
there's still some quality starting quarterback situations there. You got a couple guys that could be streamers for sure. Matthew Stafford is
I'll
one.
Say if you're like a win now first year dynasty startup, Stafford is home run.
Yeah,
I put in the chat. Guy. Sorry guys, Brian needed more time.
And then how about like a guy like Aaron Rodgers as well? Like he's a guy that's coming off that injury, so we're not too sure what his situation looks like. They say he's looking pretty good coming off that injury, and we will see. But there's a lot of people that are high on the New York Jets headed into 2024. I being one of them. With my Garrett Wilson shares, I'm very high on him. I see him finishing 2024 as a top 12 wide receiver. I don't think that's out of the range of outcomes, and I just like the situation there. They have a really powerful running game, and they just need somebody that can spread the ball around somewhat decently. And I know that Aaron Rodgers isn't at the pinnacle of his career, and he's actually on the downside coming off an injury, but he's a guy that can, be a lot better than say Zach Wilson or Mike White. So I just think that they're positioned really well to succeed in 2024.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the quarterback list right now, and at this point, having my starters filled out or whatever, I'm looking at the number of quarterbacks that I would be comfortable with having as my QB3. Bo Nix, I think I would. Matt Stafford definitely would. Aaron Rodgers would. Geno Smith would, Derek Carr would, Russell Wilson would. So that's a lot of options for guys that are still out there as your QB3.
I'd even take Daniel Jones on that list. I don't like the guy at all, but all they brought in for competition is Drew Lock. And we got to see a fun game from him filling for Geno last year. But all in all, Daniel Jones is going to he has to play at least half the season outside of injury. I don't think they're going to be calling for him with that much money. And he has the rushing upside. We've seen him finish as a QB1. You give him Malik Neighbors. I think that he's going to give you a great Superflex play, at least this season.
I agree, but he wasn't on my first tier of the guys that are left.
For sure.
All right.
For sure.
Let's look at this draft board here, folks. Okay. And let's point out, maybe let's identify the best pick of the draft as far as sliding goes, and then maybe the worst pick as far as where you think maybe someone that was just reached on. What would you think here, folks? I know that's a kind of a zinger of a question here, but there's some picks here that I was just like, wow, that's a pretty big jump. And I know that Justin Jefferson at number 3 was an auto pick, but I think that was a very a tough call there with all these in a super flex league. I think, people wouldn't scoff at that, but I think that's a pretty big reach.
Kyron
Williams. Okay, let's look at that one. Where did he go there?
211.
211. Okay, yeah. And when you look at that, and with the draft capital that was invested in Kyron Williams, and we look at what they've brought in Corum, Blake Corum could be a guy that is, taking, valuable snaps right out of the gate here. He's a strong back that runs up the middle very nicely. I think that the draft capital says, he went 2 rounds earlier than Kyron Williams, if I'm not mistaken. So the draft capital is saying a lot. He could be a guy that, even if Kyron Williams comes out of the gate strong, could actually, nip an injury, because that's not out of the realm of possibilities with the way that McVay runs his running backs. When was the last time a McVay running back lasted a full season? I don't remember. right? So when we factor that in, Corum with the draft capital could easily come in there and injury and just take over that backfield fully. So I do like that situation, that point out there, Schultzy, with Kyrie Williams sliding to the 211. That's a pretty big reach in my opinion too.
I'm a big fan of bigz grabbing his 8th round pick, Deontay Johnson at 8-12. I think
Yeah.
that's a great snag. When you're seeing guys like Stephon Diggs go before him, Deontay Johnson right now in best ball is going at wide receiver 43. Do you know where he finished last year? Wide receiver 43. So I get it. So I don't want to draft a guy. He's going to finish exactly where I draft him. He only played 10 meaningful games last year. He had 2 games under 50% of the snap counts and then didn't play the other 5. Like, this guy is going to see over 100 targets. So taking him this late in drafts, he's got a decent deal, so he will be in Carolina for at least 2 more years. I just think that there's insulated value in this guy, and he's going to have a great year. So getting him at the 8th pick, I think that's a hell of a snag.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because he's a guy that I have as a pretty big bounce back candidate for 2024. He's at least going to be the number 1 wide receiver target for Bryce Young, who's been put in a lot better situation than he was last year. They bring in a guy like Jonathan Brooks, so they're really heavily investing in their running game. They've shown that they're bringing in some other guys around them. So I just think that Bryce Young is going to be set up to succeed a little bit better. I know bigz pegged him as a guy that's going to bounce back on one of our shows, a forecast this week. And I have Deontay Johnson as a guy that I think is going to garner like 130 plus targets this year. And that is a huge bounce back season, and getting them in the 8th round as a wide receiver 1 in an offense is a huge value. So big time bigz with a huge hit there. And good on you, Brian, for identifying that, because that was one that I'd circled on there as well.
Beat to it.
And in our episodes, I like to eliminate our hosts and give an MVP of the draft. And I'm looking over and
you're looking at my team, aren't you? I know.
Well,
come on, big.
No, you're a host.
You're a host today,
so I can't say. But even so, like, and this is absolutely my rose-colored glasses, but I can't find one. There's like, I like Brocal's until we get to Debo. I'm not a huge fan of Debo. I like Grindberg's until you get to Odunze and Derrick Henry. I like H-Field, but I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Tua. I mean, like, I see flaws in all of them, but mine is perfect. Mine is bloody perfect.
Imagine that. Imagine that. No bias here, folks. We have
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm absolutely biased, but like when I start to break it down, I have 2 of the top 3 running backs. I have 2 guys that likely could finish in the top 10 quarterbacks, and then all of my wide receivers have the potential for 100 to 120 to 150, 170 targets. Jayden Reed had 94 last year. That's probably the weakest link in all of my draft.
Other than the combined age of 185 years old.
Again, we talked about this.
Between 4
Don't
guys.
be afraid to win year 1.
Yeah, exactly.
We need to bring on the surprise guest, Stephen A. Smith, so he can talk about big smoking the weed. Because what is happening? I don't know about all that. 150 targets for all them fellas. Maybe combined. I'll give you that.
No. Last year, Devontae Adams had 175 targets. The year before, 180. Jayden Reed, 194 last year. Deontay Johnson, 147, 169 the 2 years prior when he wasn't hurt. And Hollywood Brown, 101, 107, 145. So,
so like we said, folks, check your roster. Clearly, we're drafting for 2023 Dynasty here. I didn't realize that, bigz. We're playing into last year. That's right.
I just know. There's potentialities involved. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I'm not saying that they can't do it. I'm just saying that, like, when it comes to this point in the draft, you're gambling. You're taking that gamble, and I like to err on the side of caution, I guess, when it comes to these older guys, because you know what? They burn you. Those geriatric fucks, they burn you. They bust out the bin gate, and they sit on the bench, and they don't give you points. And God, Julio, I love you so much, but you hurt me that last year. You really hurt me.
I think if I had to hand out an MVP. God, I want to say Dev, but JJ McCarthy and Will Levis as quarterbacks and Isaiah Pacheco and David Montgomery.
That's scary.
I hate that, but Justin Jefferson, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Lad McConkey as his wide receivers, love it.
If he comes back and gets like a what you call it, an Aaron Rodgers and maybe a Matthew Stafford to pair with those young QBs, I think that takes that team over the edge, because then you are competing now while also having that upside swing of future players, you know?
Yeah.
I love the wide receivers, like you said.
I do have to give a shout out to Schultzy's start.
Yes.
I do like the potential of Drake May, Jalen Waddle, and CeeDee Lamb. I love CeeDee Lamb. He's my wide receiver one in the class, like in this year. Jameer and Walker, I mean, it's good. And then Shia LaBeouf, not the actor Shia LaBeouf.
Wait, what?
But Shia LaBeouf. No, he's not. I've talked to him. It's not really Shia LaBeouf.
So that autograph I paid $100 for him, like, that wasn't the real
if you did, I will try and get your money back because I talked to him.
An actor portraying Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
But the start of Burrow, Daniels, London, Achane, Andrews, that's gotta love that first 5 rounds. That's pretty damn good. So he's my MVP. Shia LaBeouf, you're my MVP.
So, Brian, I want to thank you for joining us on the Dynasty Pulse this week. You've been an awesome guest. I love the back and forth you give us. You're always animated, and you're always welcome back whenever you want to come and hang with us. No matter what platform we're on, you're always a welcome guy, and we appreciate your support and appreciate you having you on your show. So why don't you tell our viewers and everybody around us where they can find you again and all your awesome stuff, man. What?
Tell us and the viewers where they can find you in your velvety, dulcet tones.
Well, hang on. Let me turn on the setting I have on my mic that fixes all the. No, no. I am on Twitter. You'll find me at @too_much_Brian. Look, folks, I'm trying to put out more there. I'm trying to be funny and witty, but I pick it up, I start tweeting, and then I get bored with it. Outside of that, you're mainly going to find me all over YouTube. I will be at the Fantasy Football Advice Network. I'm putting out my Too Much Fantasy Football and Too Much Best Ball, and of course, spotting, helping out as much as I can with bigz and Grindberg. Like I said, 2 of the best in the industry. I have too much fun hanging out with these guys. And then if you know what? Football, it can only consume 99% of our lives. We need to spend a little time outside elsewhere, and that's where I come in. I've got Too Much Movie Night and Too Much Shenanigans, a fun comedy podcast and a fun movie podcast where we dive into the old school movies and find out, are they still as good as we remember back in our childhood? Because you know what? They don't hold up. They don't all hold up, folks. I'll be the first one to tell you that. But guys, I can't thank y'all enough for having me here. Schultzy, I love the hosting here. Great job with the producer running, because clearly these two can't do it. They needed some help. So I'm glad to have you on the team here.
You mispronounced the 2 best in the industry. Also, you know what film does hold up? Beverly Hills Cop.
Hey, it's on the list. We haven't done it yet, but it's on there. We're trying to work it in. That's for sure.
You know what else is the good
movie? My DMs are open. God damn it!
You could catch the Anchorman in the wrong Burgundy division. You can catch Grindberg there in the Scott Fish Bowl because they just got in. So, woo!
Congrats! Yeah, straight shot right to the baby maker.
Yeah, love it. So, guys. What a great show. I had a lot of fun, hanging out, talking, Dynasty startup, a lot of good banter.
I had more fun than you did.
I know you always do, bigz. It's because of your seltzers. It's because of your potion that you're drinking. And you want to give your plug?
Cider, shout out Golden State Cider, beautiful NorCal, Sonoma, California.
You see, Grindberg's going for fun down the road. bigz, obviously, we talked about. He just wants the fun right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Market inefficiency of fun.
I love your beer cozy there, Brian. The Fantasy Football Advice Network beer cozies. Let's go. We're gonna have to get some of those, bigz.
Also, I'm gonna shout out Fantasy Football Advice Network merch store, where I just got my fantasy forecast hat and my Fantasy Football Advice Network trucker that I will be sporting at the expo in August.
Shout out so Too Much Best Ball. We're doing scarves. I'm not a hat guy, so we're doing scarves for the Too Much Best Ball.
Ooh, yeah, footy scarves. That's a great idea.
Yes, I love it. That's so great, man. I can't wait to meet y'all in person at the expo. We've hung out a lot. virtually, and it's about time that we get together and rock it. We're going to have a lot of good partnerships there. All the platforms that support us so well and vividly. We would like to thank them all. So thanks for tuning in to the Dynasty Pulse, folks, on the Undroppables Network, on the Fantasy Football Plus Network. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Hope you win.
See y'all later.